Hello and welcome to the Weekend Eve, sports fans. This is Any Given Sunday on KUAW. I'm Brian Kress, the awesome voice. Across from me, coming back after a 2-week layoff. Well, actually, he was busy working for the last 2 weeks, but he's in the studio now. My brother with another mother, Coach 24, Darwin Penny. How are you doing?
Doing great. Awesome voice. Glad to be back, not only in Kansas City, but to be back on the show. When you go toward the West Coast, man, it throws your body off. So I'm trying to get my body back, losing them 2 hours and then coming and giving it back. So.
Oh, wow. Absolutely. And behind the scenes running the show, DJ Scatter, George Walker. Mr. Walker, how are you doing this evening?
Hey, it's going along just great here, just great.
Oh, that's awesome. So we've got a lot of sports going on, and we're going to start off with baseball because I was just talking with Coach 24, and we were talking that in 1969, before that, it was just the winner of the American League versus the winner of the National League. You had the World Series. 1969, they did it in divisions. So they had the Western Division and the Eastern Division of the American League, and then the same with the National League. So that first year in 1969, which, by the way, we were 3 years old, it was the Baltimore Orioles and the Minnesota Twins. And for the National League, it was the Atlanta Braves versus the Miracle New York Mets. And eventually the Mets played the Orioles, and the Mets won, getting their name, the Miracle Mets. So saying that, we were talking on our last show about, we both agreed that we liked how that system was going because that's how we grew up watching it. We had, the Royals were in the West, and the Yankees and Boston were in the East, and the same as in the National League. In fact, you get Cincinnati in the West, but that was okay. So, you had the two winners, and then they played each other to go to the World Series in both of them. Well, this time, we had advanced. There was 6 teams, there was 8 teams, but there was 2 teams in each league that had the bye week or the bye, and did not play in the first round. Saying that, to make the Final Fours, there's only one of those teams that we would have considered old school to make it. All the others, did the upset. The Astros were the only ones. The Rangers played Baltimore. They swept Baltimore, which ironically, Baltimore now in their last 2 playoffs, which was the last one was 2014, they got swept by the Royals. They got swept by Texas. And then the Diamondbacks just put it to the Dodgers. I mean, every deficiency that the Dodgers had, that they exploited it. And then the Philadelphia Phillies beat the Atlanta Braves. And we were thinking Dodgers Braves, the winner was going, because that was the old school stuff. So saying that, how do you see the playoffs going this year?
Very interesting playoffs this year, but I still do think there is something to be said for the team that's playing the best baseball going into the playoffs. We saw teams get hot going to the playoffs and then be successful, and teams that we see that are still playing today, right? Houston and Texas were in a battle for their division, and knowing that one of them was going to win the division, the other one would get one of the wild card berths. And so that constant pressure of having to play day in and day out, I think, continues to bode well for the playoffs. The Phillies got hot at the right time. Also, when we see them playing, Arizona was fighting for their lives to get in. And so they took that momentum and then were able to supplant the Dodgers and continue to move. If today, I think it's going to be hard for the Astros to overcome losing those first two at home, even though they gave themselves a chance by winning Game 3. If they win now Game 4, then I would probably switch the edge back to them. But just seeing it where I see it right now, I would say the Rangers and then the Phillies. The Phillies bats are really playing up right now. And what you need at this point in the season is you want your best player, your marquee advertised player to be hot. And right now, Bryce Harper is hot. We'll see in the other series if Altuve starts to turn the table like he did the other night for Houston. He and Alvarez, I think, have the opportunity to put the series back in Houston's favor. But the one thing I will mention, too, is old school managers, since you brought up the term old school, okay? Bruce Bochy and my man Dusty Baker. Those are old school guys, right? Those are guys that are still managing the game with old school gut feelings, knowing their staffs, knowing when not to extend their staffs. It was even like last night, Bochy probably could have put a Band-Aid on the cut a little bit sooner, but I think he was managing his staff to say we weren't going to sweep them anyway, so let's do everything that we can to make sure our bullpen is ready over these last 3 to 4 games.
Absolutely. And the thing with the Astros is, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the last time, if they do win this series and go to the World Series, they'll be the first team since the 1985 Royals to lose their first 2 games at home and come back to win, because there was a stat that said I think it happened like 20 times, and only like 2 have they made it to the Game 7, but more times than not, they got swept at 4. So, but here is my analysis with that. The Astros are the defending champs. Yeah, Texas is playing well. Now, they didn't play as well with, maybe more of just Scherzer just had a bad night and allowed the Astros to come back and win in a high-scoring 8-5 game. And they will play just shortly after this show is over. So I wasn't worried about Houston coming back, because I think they were a veteran enough team to do that. The Phillies, on the other hand, the Diamondbacks, I think they played out their best against the Dodgers. Phillies right now are rolling, even though right now at the bottom of the 7th inning, the Phillies and Diamondbacks are tied 1-1. But the Phillies have really just been, if you would say the best out of these 4 teams, I would say it's the Phillies right now.
Yeah, the Phillies have played well. We got to remember that the Phillies were in the World Series last year, right? If we go back to our own 2014 Kansas City Royals, what did we do in 2015? We went back to the World Series and we won it. So Houston was in the World Series in 2021 when they lost to Atlanta. What did they do? They won the World Series last year. So there's something to be said for teams getting to the World Series, maybe not winning it, but it creates a hunger to get back the very next year if you can keep the majority of your roster intact and then make a few tweaks. There's a level of veteran leadership and experience that does matter in the postseason. And so I think when you look at this series, we see some of that, and maybe, Philly is that team of destiny based on what we've seen over the last couple of years.
Absolutely. So I have the Phillies and the Astros winning. So you have
the Rangers and Phillies.
So we've got that, and like I said, right now it's 1-1, bottom of the 7th inning. I guess Diamondbacks are still batting, so there's a guy on second base. There's no outs. So obviously I don't know if there was a home run hit because I don't see the stats or anything, but there is a guy at second base. There is no outs, and then later on the Astros and the Rangers. So with that, we're done with baseball for right now, and then we're going to go to the NFL. And there is a lot going on because So there are no more undefeated teams. Miami has done, I don't know how many players or former players popped the champagne cork, celebrated that there is still the only undefeated team in NFL history and everything else. But the two teams that played that was undefeated that lost, everybody has given them the pass. They were like, oh, yeah, it's a stumble. But saying that, your Dallas Cowboys, when they get a little hiccup, they ride them out and drop them low. So, like, they've got Dallas, so Dallas will lose and they'll drop them. So when they lost to Arizona, it's not like they went from 1 to 2. It went from 1 down to like 4 or 5 or 6. What is the difference?
Well, part of it is just human nature and our tendency to overreact, and then the amount of exposure that the Cowboys generate. Whenever the Cowboys play, there's more viewers than when any other team plays, because whether you love them or you hate them, you watch them.
Right.
They're a polarizing team. The roller coaster that they can be at times, at the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And so I think most times people in the collective media will overreact one way or the other, right? If they lose a game, it's an overreaction to how they lost. Okay. Right. If they win, then it may be over. But if you look at their losses and you look at their wins, say the Chargers the other night, all their other wins have been blowout wins.
Right.
Okay. So 4 of the wins. And when you blow teams out, especially when the NFL teams generally don't get blown out. You can get beat. We consider a skunk in the NFL at 2 touchdowns. Right. You beat a team by 2 touchdowns. You don't beat teams by 40. No. You don't beat Belichick by 35.
No.
And so those reactions tend to go with where they've been. But then here you go and you lose to Arizona, and people say, "Oh, you shouldn't lose to Arizona." Well, Arizona players get paid too, and then it would have been okay to lose to the 49ers, but you got blasted.
Right.
You lost by 32 points at them, and so but it's the inordinate amount of coverage. The players are at an all-time scrutiny level. Because there's always a story in Dallas. When is there never not a story in Dallas?
That's true,
right? If the NFL doesn't have anything to talk about, let's go get Jerry stirred up, right?
Exactly.
And you can find a story. So I don't know that it's too much, but what we do know is that there is a ton of coverage, and so with a ton of coverage comes varying degrees of how you view them as a team, and I think that creates the volatile environment that we see in our media when it comes to the Cowboys.
So now, as of today, the media is like at its premium, whereas when the 49ers and the Cowboys last won the Super Bowl, which was 94-95, there was press coverage, but there wasn't that media coverage. We ourselves could not chime in and say, hey, this is great, this is not great. Is there a major difference between that?
Absolutely. When you look at the different formats to get information out now as compared to what it was in 1994, 95, there's so many more voices that are attached to it, right? And then there's the speed of which we can get information out. There used to be deadlines that people in the media, especially the written media, had to have. There's no deadlines now, right? because we can do everything electronically. And so now it's okay, how fast can we get this information out? We can transmit live, right? We used to have a few people that were live, the major broadcast networks. Everybody can be live now. You and I are live, right? And we can talk about that. And so think about it. There were no sports talk shows in the 90s other than probably one or two people late in the 90s. But in the middle of the 90s, the best thing you had going was Sports Center, right? And your local news, and then your local newspaper outlets. And so there was only so much information. Now there's a deep dive into that. Add in the metrics and analytics with fan graphs and things like that. Now that only adds for more conversation, right? The more data we have, the more things that we can talk about. And so now everybody is scrutinized to a higher level. We also now can track players basically from the time that they're 5-star prep school stars through college into the NFL.
Absolutely.
And so that's more information that we have. And so the more information-driven society that we are, there's going to be volatility in what we report, because now also there's a lack, in my opinion, a lack of responsibility to the media at what they say. And you can say whatever you want to now, and you're not really held accountable to what you say. And so whereas the old school media, there were certain things that you didn't say and certain behaviors that you had. And so, and like you say, everybody's got a mic, everybody's got a platform, YouTube. So
right. And I know from watching like film and stuff where, like, if me as a coach, I'm trying to, I've got a group of reporters, old school reporters, but I feel that at that time, those reporters were kind of close knit. They could go afterwards and drink a beer or, and hang out. So like if I have something that I don't want to say immediately and they're trying to get it out of me, I could say, hey, can you hold off on that? And I can get back with you later. And they're like, sure, no problem. Today, absolutely not. If I have one slip of a word, there are hundreds of people that are posting that and videoing it, and then everybody else is responding to it. So it's just so it is a slippery slope, and it is a different animal today than what it was. Saying that, how do you see Dak Prescott? Because I know a lot of people are still don't think that he's performing as great as he should be.
Well, here's the I'm a Dak Prescott fan, right? Regardless if he's playing for the team that I like the most or what, because again, he's a guy that was a 4th-round pick, not a 1st-round pick,
right?
And so, as a 4th-round pick, that means you have some limitations, and I think he's done the best that he can with some of the limitations that he has. But he's made good throws. He's had ability. He's had big games. But in Dallas, you are measured and you're scrutinized by 2 legends.
Right.
Roger Staubach, Troy Aikman.
Right.
You either fill those guys' shoes, or people will consider you less than adequate. Romo was the same way. The one thing you can't be in Dallas is good. You have to be great in Dallas, or you have to be a bum. You can't be in the middle.
Right.
You cannot be an average NFL quarterback in Dallas, right? And that's what he's been his entire career. Sometimes he plays average, sometimes he plays above average, right? For me, when I look at Dak Prescott, I look at the totality of his career, and that no season that he's been the quarterback the full season have they had a losing season.
Right.
That matters to me, right? they've made the playoffs more than they've missed the playoffs. No, they haven't had that big leap and gotten to the NFC Championship game or to the Super Bowl. But most people who degrade Dak do so because of the amount of money that he makes. When if they would step back and look at what the going rate of an NFL quarterback, they'll say, "Oh, he's actually making what an NFL quarterback ought to make."
Right, exactly.
Right? $40 million was a going rate. Jerry had a chance to get him for 25 or 30 million, and he didn't. Okay, and so 40 million is a going rate. So if Mahomes is getting 40 million, then that's what the standard at 40 million becomes. Well, Mahomes getting 40 million, he ain't good as Mahomes.
Right.
Right. And so that's what it becomes. And then Tom Brady took less money. You know, all of those things factor in. And people evaluate him based on the amount of money that he makes, not really truly anything else. Right. For $40 million, this is our mentality in America. Okay. For $2, we want a buffet.
Yeah.
That's the mentality we have in this country.
That is true.
We want as much as we can for as little as possible.
Right.
Right? We want a Porsche for the same price that we pay for a Pinto.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. Okay? When these quarterbacks go into the free agent market, they determine what the market is yielding.
Right.
And so as I tell people, if you, whatever job you work, whatever profession you're in, don't you want what the going rate is for that profession, right?
Exactly.
And so I think at the end of the day, Dak will need an offense that is complementary to his skill set. For me personally, I don't think they've had that, but maybe the first 2 years that he was in Dallas, that there was a complementary running game, everything that needs to work in his favor. But once we start paying you, then we expect you to play like $40 million. And so you start to then build the offense around his salary and not his ability. And so they're also making some changes this year to the offense with it not being under Kellen Moore. I think the thing that has hurt most of these quarterbacks this year was the lack of playing time in preseason. You've got to get that stuff ironed out in preseason. I don't care what you're doing, OTAs and all of that. You need to get it out there in spring. How many people anointed Jalen Hurts off of one good year?
A lot of people.
And I told you then, I'm not going to anoint him off of 1 year.
Right.
I'm just not. And now he's come back to the pack. Okay, I've listened to Shady McCoy and all the other Eagle people talk about, how great he is because he has, yes, he's went to a Super Bowl. Yes, Dak's never gone to a Super Bowl, right? Okay, but that's 1 year where we're looking at an 8-year window of this young man as Dak Prescott, right? And so I can show you a bunch of one-hit wonders, okay, but that didn't make him no Michael Jackson.
Right, exactly. So let me do this. So we're talking about Dak Prescott. Sorry, guys. His abilities and everything else. He has won playoff games. But here's one quarterback that hasn't, and he has been given a pass, and when he's not winning, it's okay. Justin Herbert.
Right.
And he's got a $262.5 million contract for 5 years, which is more than Dak Prescott.
$100 million more.
Exactly. So everybody keeps giving him, a benefit of the doubt and everything else. Maybe he has not played as many years, but he's played enough years.
He's in year 5.
Exactly. So, he has never won a playoff game. In fact, Dak Prescott has never blown a 27-0 lead to lose a playoff game. So why is Justin Herbert getting this pass when Dak Prescott gets rolled out on a rail?
It's style points, right? We like guys that look a certain way, and Justin Herbert fits that mold, right? Justin Herbert also was a high round pick. Right,
exactly.
He was one of the top guys in his draft, right? But he showed a big flash early, And everybody thought, oh, man, the future is here. When in reality, what happened is we might have saw his best early, right? And he's still going to make plays, and his athleticism captivates you. You know, Dak is a lunch pail guy, right? Mm-hmm. Dak is a Toyota Camry.
Right.
Okay, this guy is this guy's an Audi, right? Now, the Audi and the Camry got to ride on the same freeway. Okay.
Yeah.
But, you know, right now, the Camry is getting all of the attention when, in your mind, the Audi ought to be getting all that attention because it's got all the bells and whistles. But what's been the difference is when you put that star on your helmet, like it or not, you get a higher level of scrutiny, like it or not. But by the same token, you get a lot of perks that go along with that. Dak has 13 national television commercial and endorsement. My guess is that Justin Herbert doesn't have that many.
Right. Okay.
When you are the face of the franchise of the most valued team in all of sports, you're scrutinized at a different level, right? When Aaron Judge is hurt, okay, he's scrutinized because he plays for the Yankees.
Right.
Right. When one of our players here in Kansas City is hurt, it's not on national news. Okay, it's not on national news.
No.
If Alex Gordon was out, most people wouldn't know. But there was conversation around Aaron Judge every day. It goes along with that. If you play for the Lakers, if you play for the Celtics, okay, if you're in those big markets. But Jerry, and even before Jerry with Textram, they created an image that goes along with that. And they had the perfect quarterback to go with that image in Roger Staubach. And so every quarterback since is measured by Roger the Dodger, right? Yeah. Troy was measured to that, but with his surrounding cast and his ability, they were able to be successful. But no quarterback has lived up to that for the last 30 years. And two average talent guys are trying to fill that void. Okay? Dak, and then prior to Dak, Tony Romo, who wasn't even drafted.
Right.
And that's a lot to ask of guys to go out and to handle it. My hat has gone off to Dak because he's handled it really well. This year's the first time I've seen them kind of break him a little.
Right, because they were talking about the 49ers from last year. And
from the last 2 years.
Right.
Right. And so in the last 2 years has been when he's been under the big contract.
Right.
And I saw it break his spirit just a little bit, and he kind of uncharacteristically got a little upset where normally he's been steady Eddie under. But that just says to me that he cares. It matters to him. He wants to bring Dallas a championship as bad as anybody. He's not a guy that's just taking the money. Okay?
Oh, absolutely.
But like I said, some of that off the field money that you get is because you have a star on the side of your helmet.
Right.
Okay, Micah Parsons, if you were playing in Carolina, people might know who you are, but everybody knows your name because of who you are. They're on television every week. Right.
And so when he played a subpar performance against San Francisco, oh, man, he got lit up, but all the other times. So saying that, you know, we're talking about, you know, Dallas and stuff, and I know they do an incredible job of taking care of business with the teams that they need to take care of business. Do you think they still have enough to make it to the Super Bowl this year?
Yeah, I do think they have enough. A couple of key injuries that they've gotten hurt. Certainly Trayvon Diggs was a big blow, big injury there. And then we look at also looks like Van Der Esch is probably going to be out the rest of the year, may be done for a career because of the sensitivity of the neck area, and he's already gone through this once before. And that guy's really good in the run stopping and some other areas that are dinged up. As I told you many times before, I was not totally convinced that Tony Pollard could be the bell cow.
Right.
Okay.
You have been saying this since the middle of last year.
Yeah, I'm just not convinced, and I think he's a really good player, but I think he's best like if he was in the outfield and we had a right-left platoon player.
Right.
Right. And I think there's so many things that you could do with him and Zeke. They've had issues in the red zone. Well, 18 red zone touchdowns are gone from last year.
Right.
12 by Zeke, another 6 by Dalton Schultz. So, but that said, because of their ability to rush the passer and their ability to defend the pass, I still think they have an opportunity. They're in their, what I consider one of their 2 tough stretches game-wise, because 3 of these 4-game stretches were on the road. And then they've got another tough stretch at the end of the season, but 3 of those 4 games are at home. And so we'll see what that looks like. And all I care is about getting in the playoffs. If you get in the playoffs, right? But who's really set themselves apart this year? Every team that has a loss has a bad loss, an unexpected loss, with the exception of the Lions.
Yeah.
You know, they're the only ones that when they lost to a good team.
Right.
Everybody else has lost either to a not so good team or got blown out like the Dolphins did against the Bills.
So even the Chiefs, when they lost to the Lions, you consider that a bad loss then too?
Who thought the Lions were going to beat the Chiefs opening day?
You know,
in Kansas City.
True, but I still had thoughts. I was like, this doesn't seem right. Saying that, yeah,
right. If Detroit continues to do what they've been doing, then the loss doesn't look so bad.
Right.
But Monday after week 1, that was a bad looking loss.
Right, and then they turned around and lose to Seattle. Right. So I thought, they're back to the same Detroit, which now they're not. They are the new version of it.
And they've got the easiest schedule. If you look based on what we've seen over the first 6 weeks, their schedule lines up to be more favorable than anybody else's in the NFC in particular. The Chiefs, for me, are still the number 1 team, even though they haven't looked as explosive as they have in the past, and they're trying to address that. And for all of my friends who you know who you are, I told them that Tony wasn't the answer.
Yep, exactly.
I would have taken Hardeman over Tony any day of the week. But
now we got them both.
now you got them both, and Tony can be who he is, and that's a return guy and a complimentary guy. Can't ask him to be the number 1 guy.
Right. So with the Chiefs, yes, they're. A lot of people complained about them only scoring 19 points against Denver after they've been lit up by everybody. But if you look at it, they only gave up 1 touchdown. And had they shut out, the Broncos, it would have been the first shutout in Sean Payton's head coaching career. Mm-hmm. That's how close. And it took a couple of penalties. I'm not going to say that the penalties were BS or not. It happened. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. But they still, if you betted the Chiefs and betted the points, which was 10.5, you would have still won. Right. It just wasn't 31-10 or 31-17. It was 19-8. In saying that, they are the number 1 defense in points allowed on the defense. I think Cleveland may be number 1 total, but still, they went from Mahomes' first year, 2018, where Mahomes had to score 51, 54 points in order to win because the Chiefs couldn't hold the water if they had a bucket with them and stuff. So I still believe that the Chiefs are number 1. So here's my top 10 in the power rankings. I have Detroit number 1. I have Kansas City 2. I have San Francisco 3. I have Miami 4. I have Philadelphia 5. I have Jacksonville 6. I have the Cleveland Browns jumped up to 7, Dallas 8, Buffalo 9, and the Baltimore Ravens 10. So, with that, what part do you agree with and not agree with?
like I said, I believe that KC should be number one. I believe that they're still number one. San Francisco is still would be number two for me. I still think that is probably the most complete roster in the NFL. Four for me would be Miami and their explosiveness. To me, Detroit gets five.
So
Buffalo 6.
So who is 3?
Philly.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And see, I kind of wonder about Philly because Philly
they haven't been what they were last year. Last year,
right.
They were plow horsing people.
Right.
But I think that goes along with the territory of people coming to you and saying, "Look, you get everybody's A game, just like the Chiefs do. You get everybody's A game." But Jalen Hurts hadn't played as well, and I think people are making adjustments defensively to that RPO offense, right?
Right.
And defensive coordinators are going to always get smarter to try to deal with that. And I think it's been over the last few years, it's been hard. And these kids that have come out of college that played in those RPO offenses have gone into the NFL and had success initially. It's after that where the challenge starts to become. The NFL referees have also caught up with it, and they've started calling illegal blockers downfield with it a lot more often, and so it's killed some drives and things like that. So it's always a little bit of a wait for everybody when something new comes into the league for people to catch up, and I think that's what you see. I think that Dallas is about 7, Baltimore 8, and that's where I'd probably then just add Jacksonville.
See, I moved Jacksonville up to 6.
Yeah. I know they're playing well defensively, but I don't have Cleveland in my top 10. I would put Seattle in the top 10 over Cleveland.
Seattle in the top 10.
Over Cleveland.
I had Seattle 11.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's right there. I had Tampa Bay in the top 10 last week, and then after they lost to Detroit, I dropped them down to 12. So I've got all that. And the bottom 5, I'm not even going to worry about. They're not that important right now. All they're worried about is fighting for the number 1 pick in next year's draft.
So who has the longest winning streak in football in the NFL?
Oh my gosh, I know Detroit is 13-3.
No, longest winning streak.
I know. I'm just saying they're 13-3 in the last 16 regular games.
Don't make this harder than it has to be, Brian.
Kansas City.
Yes. They lost opening night and haven't lost since.
Well, that's true.
Everybody else has lost since opening night.
And I was overthinking it. So
that's why they're number 1 for me.
Gotcha. I had done that. I was going to, but I figured I did it based on how Detroit handled Tampa Bay, because Tampa Bay had been surprisingly playing well. I'm not saying they're great, but they've been surprisingly playing.
Shaker
right,
Baker.
but Detroit usually goes on the road and throws a dud. They came into Kansas City, but that was a national televised game, everything else. This was one of those – it could have been one of those trap games for them. Mm-hmm. And they went in and they just took care of business. So that's why I have them number 1. So now – we were supposed to go on break. We are. Do you still want us to go on break? All right. We're going to take a quick break, probably a 60-second break, and then when we come back, we're going to do our picks for the week, and then we're going to do the best segment of the show, Penny for Your Thoughts. So I am Brian Kress, the Awesome Voice, with Coach 24 Darwin Penny. This is Any Given Sunday on KUAW. All right, we are back with Any Given Sunday. We're in the second half. Brian Cressy, awesome voice, Coach 24, Darwin Penny, and DJ Scatter, George Walker. We're going to do our picks for the week. We're going to go a little bit faster than what we had been going because usually it's been time consuming. But anyway, so tonight I am wearing my Clemson, Jacksonville. I am wearing my Trevor Lawrence jersey. So and here's the thing. Jacksonville, after 6 games, has a winning record. That was the first time that they've had a winning record after 6 games. Not 3-3, but a winning record since 2007. And Saints still have that great defense, still keeping people under 20 points, because even though they lost to the Houston Texans, they still only gave up 20 points. So, but saying that, I've got Jacksonville going tonight.
Yeah, I still think it's going to come down to which quarterback can make the most plays, and I'm going to take Trevor Lawrence over Carr right now.
Absolutely. So, arguably outside of Miami and Philadelphia, this would be the game of the day because Miami Philadelphia is Sunday night. Detroit at Baltimore.
I'm going to take the Ravens. I think they'll be able to slow the game down a little bit and give them a chance to be successful. Lamar's playing pretty good right now.
I'm going to give I think Detroit has been playing very well. Dan Campbell has got them rolling. And here's a good stat. They have 4 straight games of winning by 14 points or more. And this is the first time in a single season that they've done that since 1934. So it's a long time. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to win by 14 points or more, but they have to slow down the Ravens' defense, which they have 11 players on the Ravens with at least 1 sack. So if they can control that, then Detroit will have it, and I've got Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
So now we've got Las Vegas and Chicago. And Hoyer is playing because Garofalo is not. He has lost his last 12 starts, which is the longest active quarterback losing streak. And DJ Moore has more receiving yards in 6 games with the Bears than any Bears player had all of last season.
Montgomery's probably not going to play.
Montgomery's playing for Detroit.
Right. No. So the Bears got a lot of injuries.
Oh, Herbert.
Right.
Hebert, whatever.
So they've got a lot of guys out. That's another reason why Detroit game also matters to me, is because he's not playing. But I'm gonna go Raiders in the battle of non-quarterbacks.
I'm doing the same thing because I don't even know the name of the Chicago Bears quarterback. I mean, I at least know Brian Hoyer, and I know that he's not good, but I don't even know. I can't even think of the quarterback, and even if I knew it and said the name, I still wouldn't know who he is. I've got the Raiders too. Cleveland at Indy. Now, Cleveland since 2021 is 3-13 following a win, whereas Zeke Moss is the 5th Colts player in franchise history to have 450 yards rushing yards and 4 touchdowns over the first 5 games of a season.
I'm going to go with the Browns. Colts were dealt a tough blow for the season with their rookie quarterback, Richardson, having to undergo shoulder surgery. He's going to be down. I thought he brought a lot of young energy into that franchise. And so the Browns defensively are better, and I just feel like they'll handle the Colts.
Gotcha. I've got Indy, and I think Minshew has really, even though they did lose this last game, I think they will play well, and I think Cleveland was too much of a high. Now, if if the head coach can control the Cleveland and they can keep playing as well as they have, then yes. But I've got Indy. Buffalo and New England.
New England's been very sad of example of a football team this year, so the Bills should handle that game easily.
Absolutely. And here's a stat. They're the only team with 0 games of 21 points or more. They're only averaging 12 points a game. Enough said. Washington at New York Giants.
The Giants are in total disarray. How good of a coach is Brian Daboll? Right? Last year they were talking about how great he was, but I thought he's a great coach, but a poor evaluator for giving that money to Daniel Jones. So I'll go with the Commanders.
Absolutely. Commanders are 11-3-1 when they get a turnover or they get a takeaway, and the Giants have only 5 sacks. So Howell is going to be pretty clean. So we've got Washington, Atlanta at Tampa Bay.
I'll go with the Buccaneers.
I will too. Even though Ritter messed me up saying that he was undefeated at home, he's going to continue the winless on the road. Pittsburgh at the Los Angeles Rams.
I'm going to go with the home team, the Rams. Rams look like they found something over the last couple of weeks and starting to find a little offensive rhythm with Cooper Kupp being back in action. He and Stafford have a unique ability to connect with one another, and his ability to get off the line is very, very important with Matt Stafford because he wants to be able to get rid of the ball quickly. So having Cooper Kupp back is huge for the Rams.
Absolutely. And they're averaging 367 yards per game on offense, and Pittsburgh's allowing 389.4 yards on defense. Enough said, Rams. Arizona at Seattle.
I'm going to go with Geno and the Seahawks.
And I agree with that, too. Arizona's one win is the fewest since they've been in Arizona in 1988. And Seattle leads the NFL with 7 players with 2 sacks or more. So Baltimore with 11 players and 1 sack was impressive. Seattle's even more impressive. Green Bay at Denver.
This is a tough one for me because the Packers, for me, have underachieved this year. I really thought they would win that division, and the Lions have clearly separated themselves. But Denver is a train wreck, and so I'm going to go with the Packers.
I'm going to go with Denver. I think they are starting to see a little bit, and their running backs are unstable because of Aaron Jones being injured. And I think Green Bay's receiving core is fewer than the Chiefs' receiving core. So I've got Denver. Kansas City or Los Angeles Chargers at Kansas City.
Tough to win at Arrowhead for anybody, and I think the Chargers got some holes that they need to fill, and so I'll be going with the Chiefs.
Absolutely. And Patrick Mahomes is 16-0 in career at home against teams with losing record, and the Chargers are 2-3. Enough said. Miami at Philadelphia. Now, Miami has scored 30 touchdowns in the first 6 games. That is the 4th most in the Super Bowl era, and Hurts is 8-0 versus teams with a winning record since last year.
I'm going to go with the Dolphins here. I think it's going to turn into a track meet, but I think Tyreek Hill is going to have an outstanding game. I really don't know. The Eagles' secondary is a little banged up still, and will they be able to get to Tua from a pass rush stance? Jalen Hurts is not playing well. They don't have the vaunted running game they have. They've played well enough, but I think the Dolphins, this is a make-or-break game for me with the Dolphins, right? If they get severely beaten in this game like they did against Buffalo, then nobody will take them serious for the rest of the year. They'll be like the old Chargers of Eric Coryell. A lot of points, a lot of fluff, but no real substance.
Right, absolutely. Miami struggles with the pass defense against Chargers, against the Bills. Philadelphia doesn't have that passing offense. And so because of that, I take the Miami Dolphins too. Now, San Francisco at Minnesota.
Vikings are a little bit down. They still can score points, but I don't think they can do that against the 49ers' vaunted defense. And so I'm going to go with the 49ers, even though they're a bit nicked up.
Absolutely. So, oh, and last week you were 10-5, so you've got a one-game lead on me. I think you're 57-35, and I went 9-6, and I am 56-36. So, with that, we have our predictions, and I will do it again Sunday at my house on Facebook. So, if you guys want to check it out, I will go back over and tell you what we did, and hopefully I can finally get what the NFL Network guys have for their predictions, because they've been doing the last several weeks in London, so they don't do their predictions. And it's 1-1, bottom of the ninth, Philadelphia and Arizona. So now we are to the most important part and the best part of our show. Penny, for your thoughts.
Today's penny for your thought goes out to Richard Marvin Butkus. Most people know him as the great Dick Butkus. Dick Butkus became the symbol of what a middle linebacker should be in the National Football League and playing for the Chicago Bears. He was their number one pick out of the University of Illinois in 1965, which also the Bears unbelievably drafted Gale Sayers in the same draft. And so he was a fierce competitor, hard-nosed middle linebacker, and has become the symbol as to what middle linebackers were measured. Okay, if you were a pretty good middle linebacker, one of the things they would say is, you trying to be like Butkus, or you ain't no Dick Butkus, right? And so, but he was also more than that, is what he brought to Chicago. He brought to Chicago a hard-nosed style of football. He reinvigorated what was considered the monsters of the Midway. And though they, under his time, never won a championship, because of that happened to be the time during the legendary Packers, but Dick Butkus gave Chicago something. And then he became a huge philanthropist and a great part of Chicago and what he was able to do. He transitioned over into movies and TV, and so it was fun to have fun with this guy who was a monster on the field but yet was a gentleman off the field. And it was what I used to ask my young ball players to be. I wanted them to be a hard-hitting, attacking Dick Butkus on the field, but I wanted them to be a gentleman in every area off the field. Dick Butkus, Richard Marvin Butkus, was the epitome of a monster on the field, but a gentleman in every other of his life. So we take our hats off and we salute Dick Butkus.
Absolutely. And final notice, Diamondbacks score in the bottom of the ninth, and they win 2-1 over the Phillies. It says Arizona leads 2-1, but that's wrong. It's the Philadelphia Phillies that are up 2-1. So, yes. And the Rangers and the Astros will be playing, and we are done with our show this evening. Coach 24, I love having you on the show, and I will admit I truly struggle without you because we work so well together. So I'm glad that you were here. And Mr. Walker, DJ Scatter, he does a phenomenal job of running behind the scenes and getting us going. So I greatly appreciate that too. So with that, I am Brian Kress, the awesome voice, with my brother with another mother, Coach 24 Darwin Penny, and DJ Scatter George Walker. Be awesome and not angry, and you guys have yourself a phenomenal, awesome sports weekend.